My microphone is on, that's good. Okay, we are ready to start. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the diplomatic community who is attending. Welcome to all to join us here, and also welcome to all our colleagues from other organizations and observation organizations and institutions. I'm very glad that so many found their way to join us here today. We are the European Union Election Observation Mission in Liberia 2023. Today we present our initial findings in a preliminary statement 2 days after the election on 10 October. My name is René, I'm the press officer. Let me introduce my colleagues here on the high table. Today is not only today, it's always ladies first. I want to start with my colleague on the left side. It's sorry, I know your name, but I have to find it here. Marcella Moscova is our election expert, election analyst. On the other side, it's our legal expert, legal analyst, and this is Arini Maria Gunari. Thank you very much. In the middle, you see our chief observer, Andrea Sida. I'm very happy that also the head of delegation of the European Parliament is with us. They were also observing the elections on Tuesday. It's our colleague, and I'm very happy, Mr. Leopoldo Lopez Gil. Welcome. And there on the table is our deputy chief observer, Jarek Domanski. I want to say a few words regarding the procedure now, especially for the journalists. Chief Observer Andreas Schieder will present a preliminary statement now in a speech, and will let you know what our initial findings are. Then we will give the floor to our colleague from the European Parliament, and after that we will open the floor for the journalists. And I say the journalists that the journalists have questions and that they can ask, and we will try to answer them. My colleague Jackson is somewhere then with a microphone, so please tell your name then, from which media you are, and you can ask your questions. We will deliver a printed version of the press release. We will also deliver a printed version of our preliminary statement. There are a few copies because we try to go green. All these documents are also available on our website for download, but you get some printed copies at the exit. What was the entrance at the moment, but when you leave this, you will get these copies. For the journalists, you are invited after this press conference for a small welcome lunch down on the terrace. And now I don't want to stop talking, and I want to give the floor to our chief observer, Andreas Schieder.
Perfect. Sound is fine. I also look on the guys who put the microphones there if you're happy. So, good afternoon, Excellencies, EU ambassadors, dear colleagues and friends from the other international observing organizations, from the African Union and from ECOWAS, dear media representatives, ladies and gentlemen. Following on the invitation of the government of Liberia, the European Union has deployed an independent election observation mission, which we simply call EU-EOM, to observe the 2023 general elections, which shows also the EU's continuous commitment and support for reinforcing democracy, rule of law, political dialogue. Let me at the beginning express my gratitude to the Liberian authorities for the invitation and to all actors of this electoral process for receiving us here and sharing with us your impressions, concerns and thoughts. I myself was also able to meet the stakeholders of this electoral process. And at the beginning of our statements, I think it is important to underline, I would like to congratulate the Liberian voters, especially so many young women and men who were committed to cast their votes. Some of you, the voters, had to reach the polling places and then often they had to wait for hours, and they did peacefully and under the hot sun. This is a vivid proof of the vitality of your Liberian democracy. Challenges and the obstacles well managed the election day's operations. Let me underline the work of more than 10,000 national observers who, along with party agents, also increased the transparency of the election day. Our election observation mission is present in Liberia since the end of August. Here in Monrovia, conference here in September. The mission observes and analyzes the whole electoral process, including the legal framework, the electoral administration, voter and candidates registrations, the campaign environment, including in media, but also very pleasant and very well, and I want to thank you especially for this very good cooperation. Today, the EU Election Observation Mission to Liberia presents its initial findings in our, as was mentioned, at the exit. You can also grab your copy. You will see this paper copy, but let me read also out most important paragraphs by leaving therefore more time than for questions and answers. So I will just cover the major points. These were the first post-conflict solely organized by the Liberian institution. A largely peaceful and vibrant campaign in which fundamental freedoms were mostly respected was marred by the abundant use of state resources by the incumbency, distorting the level playing mistrust against institutions. The electoral day showed Liberians' democratic commitment and was positively assessed by the EU Election Observation Mission observers, but high features and the implementation slowed the conducting of the polls. Overall, the legal framework provides a reasonable basis for the conduct of democratic elections. But however, it does not fully guarantee voters' right in an effective legal remedy. In addition, but their lack of enforcement failed to ensure complete transparency. Direct EU-EUM observation and information from stakeholders showed a high level of monetization and bartering during the electoral campaign. Despite the compressed time frame and the serious logistical challenges, and we had, as we had been here in the country since August, also witnessed how deep these logistical challenges in a country like Liberia is going. And I want to say also, managed well the preparations and complied with most deadlines. However, some activities and decisions came late in the process and were not shared in a timely manner with the magisterial offices, adversely affecting also the process. But also the opportunity to address the stakeholders' concerns early enough with a view to increase public confidence through more effective and comprehensive communication and information sharing. And also newly introduced biometric voter registration contributed to the identification of multiple and suspect records in the voter registration's role. However, technical problems during registration and systematic procedural shortcomings weakened the stakeholders' confidence in its accuracy. The fact that NEC shared the final copies of the final registration roll with the electoral contestants so close to the election day further undermine the stakeholders' trust in the registration data. Freedom of expression and the press are respected in Liberia. Political patronage, low salaries, and the lack of diversified funding streams result in self-censorship, which is the main issue in the media landscape today and has a negative impact on the quality and diversity of the messages transmitted to the public. Despite some minor incidents, most journalists feel free to cover the elections. Absence of regulatory framework for data protection and cybersecurity facilities, a fertile ground for instances of cyberbullying, usage of inflammatory language and incitement messages, discrediting of electoral contestants and shaping voters' trust in the electoral process. On a positive note, 3 main fact-checking initiatives performed verification and scrutiny of political and electoral content in a timely manner, thus helping voters to make a better informed choice. On the election day, our observers reported from 417 polling places in rural and urban areas in 14 out of the 15 counties of the country. And they assessed that the election day is generally calm, peaceful, and well conducted by the NEC, with only isolated cases of incidents, mostly as a result of voters' frustration due to the high turnout, combined with slow processing of polling or late opening in some polling places, which was also observed by the EU-EUN. Due to logistical difficulties which hampered the distribution of electoral materials, several voting precincts in the south did not open and the voting was postponed to the following days. While the conduct of evaluated as well organized and smooth, the counting phase was addressed by EU observers less positively due to omission of incomplete implementation of several important procedural steps intended to ensure integrity of the count. These shortcomings were mainly attributed to required time as well as some technical problems. Up until now, the process is assessed mainly positively as transparent and orderly by our observers. And we will, as I said, will continue to observe the process until it is finalized. We'll also follow the handling of complaints and appeals. And after the completion of the process, the EU Election Observation Mission will present to the authorities and to the public a final report with recommendations on how to improve future elections. Thank you very much for your attention. And before we open the questions, I will pass the floor to the head of the delegation of the members of the European Parliament, my dear friend, Mr. Leopoldo López Gil.
Good afternoon all, distinguished friends. My name is Leopoldo López Gil. I'm a member of the European Parliament. It is my pleasure to address you today on behalf of our parliamentary delegation. We are 7 members of the European Parliament, representing a large political spectrum and coming from 6 different countries of the European Union. First of all, we wish to express our authorities for having invited us to observe. We all feel honored to have been present during the first fully Liberian-owned general election, especially as Liberia is a very important EU partner. This is a 3rd time that the EU Election Observation Mission has been deployed to your country. Our presence underlines the EU's respect for 20 years of enduring peace in Liberia and for the country's commitment and progress to democratic consolidation. First and foremost, I want to express our full endorsement of the findings presented today by my colleague, the Chief Observer, Mr. Andreas Schwierer. I sincerely thank him for his tremendous work and the excellent cooperation with him and the great team. During the past few days, we've been here. We met with the National Election Commission, the NEC, with candidates, with religious leaders, with civil society organizations, and media representatives. We were also honored to meet with 11 Nobel Prize for Peace laureates, the President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Ms. Lima Gobe. The Chief Observer has already given a detailed overview of the mission's preliminary findings, and I therefore wish to focus on these issues that we, as elected politicians, consider crucial. The electoral campaign was largely peaceful, even though during the 2 weeks in the running up of the polls, there were some isolated incidents of violence, which regretfully led to the loss of lives. Moreover, according to our interlocutors, the exercise of the freedoms of expression, association, and assembly was mostly respected. In the course of our meetings, we got the impression that the NEC saw and ran a successful election under the current legal framework, which is fragmented, and its provisions are therefore at times challenging to apply. NEC also seems to have made an effort to be transparent, using social media platforms and other communication tools. But still, our interlocutors criticized its information, especially regarding the tallying process. There were also questions about the preparedness of the NEC to manage the election day procedures, which thankfully, as I will mention later, proved to be largely unfounded. Positively, we were informed that the voter and candidate registration process were largely inclusive, with the exception of people with disabilities. Concerning women, female candidates constitute just 15% of all registered candidates. The percentage is only half of the 30% gender quota that the political parties themselves had committed to. Democratic competition should always take place on a level playing field. All candidates should have had equal access to state institutions, resources, and the media. We are therefore concerned that there were misuse of state resources and public office, such as state officials campaigning in favor of the ruling party. In addition, we were informed that the state TV broadcaster displayed bias in favor of the party in power. The reported monetization of the campaign, as described by our interlocutors, combined with the impunity of those who do not respect the campaign finance rules, also had a negative impact on the level playing field. Concerning the electoral dispute resolution, local actors with whom we spoke expressed doubts concerning the independence of the judiciary. Turning to election day, one European Parliament team observed in Monrovia, other in Bomi County, and the third one in Magibi County. The atmosphere on the election day was mostly peaceful, and the vast majority of the polling centers, in which we observed it was well organized and transparent. But nevertheless, on the basis of our observation, promises of facilitating the voting of people with disabilities were not fulfilled. I would like to extend our sincere thanks and congratulations to the staff of the polling places. Despite the logistical challenges they face, such as lack of sufficient light during the counting, they did their best to ensure that the proceedings ran smoothly as possible. But we also observed that the election day procedures have been relatively slow. Above all, I would like to express our admiration for the civic spirit and enthusiasm shown by the people of Liberia, who went to vote in such large numbers. I would now like to refer to the post-electoral period. First of all, as democratically elected politicians, my colleagues, the parliamentarians, and I urge all political leaders to wait calmly and patiently for the announcement of the final results, to accept the election outcome, and to do the utmost in order to ensure that the supporters refrain from violent acts. Moreover, it is crucial that the counting and tallying continue to be done in a transparent and traceable manner to strengthen the confidence in this step. Any dispute regarding the electoral process should be addressed peacefully according to the established legal procedures. It is also crucial that the judiciary shall perform its constitutional duties in an independent and impartial manner. Finally, I would like to reaffirm that the EU, as a key partner of this country, will continue supporting Liberia and its people. The European Parliament in particular is committed to enhancing its cooperation for the next government and parliament in the months and years to come. We believe that this cooperation should include accompanying the process of implementation of the European Union mission recommendations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chief Observer and Head of European Parliament Delegation. I want to give the floor now to the journalists who are here. My colleague Jackson is somewhere with a microphone. Please tell us your name and the media you're working for and give us a question.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Moses Gazo. I work for BBC. Two inquiries. You spoke about the level playing field in the election financing. Would you mind telling us, because there are two provisions, you can't overspend, you can't take outside money. Which one you think was violated? My second concerns have to do with you monitoring the elections. Most time in African elections, the aftermath is what matters most. People have gone very peaceful in casting a ballot and going through campaign. But what are you doing in terms of engaging with stakeholders, political parties, and government to make sure that the post-elections activities remain peaceful and as expected? Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the questions and for coming. Maybe before answering your question directly, to say an election observation mission of the European Union is not only looking on the election day only. It means that we are, and that's why I stressed also that we are here taking it very serious, and since the end of August, having more than 10 people working here as experts and having more than 20 people being in the counties around, seeing and hearing with the ears and eyes how the situation is, meeting all the stakeholders. So our impression is collecting all this information and putting it into a report. And what we got reported is that here in the country, also for the electoral campaigning, there was not level playing field, let's say, established in the sense of that not everybody had the same access to resources, or that incumbents had also overused public facilities, houses, cars, also for their electoral campaigns, which, let's say, is at the end hampering level playing field, is one example. Secondly, also what we see is that would be also one of the recommendations for the future is to have on the financing of campaigns, law established which is ensuring more transparency and also more respecting ceilings and other issues, but also making sure that everybody respects this, because it does not help only if you have limits, it also is necessary to look after this. Positively, but also we have to say, for example, that here, like you could see in Monrovia, that is moving away all the posters. Also on the days before on the posters, you also saw that level playing field did not completely exist. But for the voting days, there was no poster visible anywhere. So there was, everybody respected to this silence of campaign. And I think this is also positively to be said. And secondly, as I said, we observed before, we observed the election itself, which is of course the high day of the will of the Liberian people, and they took the chance. They all went there to cast a vote, and then there is the situation after. And of course, for the situation after, we have to be a little bit more patient. Us as observers, you as journalists, and especially those which run for positions have to be also more patient and wait until the results come in. And then anyway, politics starts to make a lot of remarks on anything. And this is very important, because it is at the end afterwards also important that the will is also reflected in the composition of the parliament, the senate, and in the president's office. So therefore, because you asked me what we will do to ensure in the aftermath, we will not leave after this press conference. We will have our people still being in the country. Our mission still stays here until the telling process is finished, and also observing the telling process, but also afterwards observing eventually all the complaints and files in front of court, or wherever in a democracy these questions have to be dealt with. And we stay, so let's say, until the end. And even more, we will come back 1-2 months after the election to present our final report. And in 2 to 3 years, also we will come back again, because we will provide also the Liberia, the whole public, the politics, the media, and everybody with a list of recommendations, and we will come back also to discuss the implementation and the development of the country in this time. So you see, we take it extremely serious. And maybe let me also use your questions. I know others also have questions, but I think it's also the moment that we have to also, I want to thank the team, the conditions, and also getting to know how life in Liberia is. And honestly, there is no European which is experienced 6 weeks of continuous heavy rains, for example. And this, of course, has an impact also on the life of the people. I also want to thank the long-term and short-term observers which had been here in the last weeks and doing this job. And also I want to mention, I think it's very good that the European Union and the European taxpayers are providing us with the possibility to make this mission, because at the end, especially in global times like we have now, there are 2 ways to make decisions. The one is to fight each other, and the other one is to vote and take a decision of the majority. And therefore, I'm still convinced, even if the world sometimes is very negative, democracy is the better way, and therefore we have to support wherever it is possible.
Good afternoon. All right, so my name is Prince Mova, and I report for Pram FM in Monrovia and focus on Liberia TV from the state. My concern is maintaining peace after election or post-election era in Africa is concerning. Is during the campaign, political parties claimed first round victory. And after the elections, we've seen the major opposition party, the Unity Party, about an hour ago had a press conference informing their supporters in Liberia that what is available to them, they won the election. And if the NSO announces anything other of what they have in their possession, they're not going to accept that. How does the EU other mission see that? That's my question.
First of all, I have to say our mission is strictly neutral. So in the forefront, we try to meet all the candidates and all political stakeholders. This is very important. But secondly, I would also say all these kind of questions can be only answered until NEC has finished its work. And until now, we see them continuing their work. They do their job, and we have to wait until the result are on the table to make any answer on your further questions on this.
Good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Girard Gaspa, and I'm reporting for the Independent newspaper. there were 5,890 polling places on Tuesday, October 10th. Your observer nation covers 414 counties. So I will give you the opportunity to grade yourself. Was your observation mission successful given the ratio of polling places you covered? And due to that question, you covered 14 out of 15 counties. The other county you did not mention. You care to tell us that county you were not able to cover and what for the reason you wasn't able to cover that county? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, indeed, we had over 100 observers who were able to observe in 14 out of 15 counties. As you mentioned, we were not able to observe in Grand Cru due to some logistical constraints. But, we were everywhere, and we were working based on a well-established methodology with the statistician, using the statistical data and evidences and direct observations. Our observers were filling in the observation forms and then reporting back. But of course, 100, one could claim that 100 is not sufficient, but using the methodology and cooperating with the domestic observers and other observation groups gives you, in a country like Liberia, quite a good picture of the election day. So I believe this right and good picture of the election day in Liberia is reflected in our preliminary statement, and you will see it in the preliminary statement, a more detailed picture of the election day.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. They are asking me to hand over the microphone when I want to ask questions, so I should give it to them before they give it back to me. It makes sense. I am May Asango. I report for Front Page Africa newspaper. And I met the chief observer on LU campus. Yes. Okay, my question. You said you will be here after the tally and you will come back 3 years after. 3 months or 3 years? 2. Oh, please make it clear because I gave all the different figures. Why will you be coming back? Is it to continue observing? And number 2, to the deputy chief observer, you haven't sing this pepper soup song because you say you like pepper soup.
For those which did not understand, there is a running joke also going on because the famous Liberian dish is red pepper soup, and it's not only a soup, it's also a song about it. And we will see. But this we do after the serious stuff here. So to clarify the numbers, we came end of August, establishing the core team of 11 experts being based here under the leadership of Deputy Chief Observer. We, in beginning of September, we had 20 long-term observers established in the counties, and they had to travel to all the counties. And for election day, we were sum up with diplomatic corps, with the members of parliament, and with short-term observers to this more than 100 observers, only from the European Union. And you have to take also African Union, ECOWAS, the other observers, and most important, the domestic observers of the parties and of the NGOs. But is it we will stay minimum 3 weeks until the elections are finished. And 8 weeks, so 2 months later, we come back to present our report. And between 2 and 3 years, in the midterm, Because usually we say 2 years because in country the terms are shorter, but here the terms is 6 years, so we are flexible. In the mid.
I'm aware that you've been observing the electoral process in Liberia. In terms of integrity, transparency, and credibility, what will you say about the process you have observed?
Or refer on this. So first of all, we have also to say we are observers, and international observer missions following a code of observation. So what we can
standardize, and when we observe, we make it on a basis that has been proven many times and many years in different countries. So we can assure you that when we observe due to a very disciplined process and with enough people. So when we finalize the report of the European Union, not be making rules, but rather the rules are the rules that you in your country have set up for the election, not our rules. And the process of observation, it is by international standard, UN standards, not necessarily European either.
Yes, my name is Gerald Koinen. I write for Front Page Africa. As you stated, the elections were marred by some violence, and we understood that in Lofa, your observation mission was on the ground. Do you mind telling us what did you observe, what really happened? Secondly, the NDC announced, as you said, some parts of Samuel, the elections weren't held because of bad road and extreme weather. Have you been informed by the NEC? When will these delayed elections be held, and will you be on the ground to observe?
So on the local issue, it was the case, just ask also if I understood rightly, it's the case where thoroughly 2 people also lost their lives in the incident. We spoke about this issue also in our meetings with the police, but also we have to make clear, because there were some rumors going around. We are an election observation mission and we are not making any investigation. The investigation is the question of the authorities in the country, the police and other ones, but of course it is very sorry that any life, any injuries are not good, but of course what is exact the background, who has to be blamed, who has to be sued for this issue is not up to us, is up to others. And secondly, we also observed that late opening in some areas, and our observers got also informed what's going on. In one case, for example, a canoe turned around and collapsed, and of course again we are on the point that logistic circumstances are very hard here, but in our observation the people try to do the best out of it, not to use it as an excuse, but the other way around. All the papers went wet, they had to dry it, and then they started again. And we also got very accurate information that polling stations 2, I think, could not open on time, opened later. Later, very later, and conducted the elections also the next day because of lack of logistics. But this was transparently reported, and our observers on the ground, of course, in these respective provinces take care of this issue.
Okay, so my name is Nelson Collins. I report for School Network. Your findings has the ability to influence the overall perception, the way people perceive this process. I want to know, did you experience challenges in the process of gathering these findings? If so, would you like to state some of those challenges?
An election observation mission is always a challenge because it's hard work. You are for a lot of weeks, even months, in a foreign country. You have to live here, to observe. It's hard work because you're meeting all possible people. And it's always a variety of a lot of issues, from legal issues, how the court is functioning, how the police is functioning, how the electoral commission is functioning, how the ministries are functioning, what the opposition thinks, what the government thinks, what the NGO thinks, what the media thinks, and so on. So this is a challenge. But I have to say, our work here, we could do our work completely freely without any obstacles or things which was put in our way. Our people could do their work here, the experts, but also the observers on the election days and before, without any problems done by any of the authorities or any Liberian. The only problem which remains is the logistical hardcomings which sometimes you have to face, but I think it's also just that the observers face the same reality like the voters.
Thank you so much. My name is Archie Boan, and I report for Toledo World Television. My concern is mainly due to the media. Like you observe that there are some other institutions, media institutions that are biased to the process. Is the EU more concerned about having a dialogue with media executives on misinformation, hate information? Because over the past time we have observed there are some other institutions who have been spreading false election results, and this alone triggered the peace and stability of this country. Is the EU more concerned about having a dialogue with media executives involved in the process?
No, we had a good dialogue with all the media outlets. If we speak about newspaper, about radio stations, even TV and social media here in the country, all kinds of media, smaller and bigger ones, more dependent, less dependent, whatever. And I think this was very good. But of course, we will put in our preliminary findings and in our final report also a paragraph on media. Information is always key to the information, which is also key of the decision-making process of the voters. So therefore, we will put ideas of how it is important to improve the legal framework for media and also to let's say, to have a more pluralistic media-wise discussion also established in this country.
Okay, my name is Afonso Kalama, and I work for the People News Online. You did mention the issue of having recommendations done to the process, which will be important to be used in the future election. So I'd like to know, would you mind telling us or giving us one key, recommendation from the time you started your observation? Would you mind giving us one of those recommendations you think should be prioritized?
First of all, it is not easy to prioritize recommendations because it depends on which issue. Sometimes it's technical recommendations, sometimes it's legal recommendations, sometimes it's about media, sometimes it's about how to organize. So honestly, I have to ask your patience until we finish our report. And as I said, our mission is not finished now, because it's only, let's say, our first impressions after the election day and the pre-missions. We will stay for another 3 weeks until the end, from the end onwards of the election, and then we will present, as I told you, somewhere 2 months later, our final report with all the details. And if you want to know a little bit more details, what we think, we ask you to take our preliminary statement when you leave, and also our press release.
Thank you. My name is Carson P. Man. I report for Exclusive TV. I listened to you. You said you've been engaging stakeholders within these elections. I want to know if you have engaged the stakeholders right after the election, and what are you hearing from them? Because we see the major actors are there sending their supporters out to go and celebrate something that has the propensity to derail the peace of this nation? What are you hearing from them? What is the feedback? Have you engaged them post-election day?
No. We have not met any of the stakeholders, meaning elections. We met them before to make our picture, and as I already said, I can only repeat myself, we know more about the result. And this is anyway much too early to make any comments on this. And we also ask to everybody. If you want like this, all the stakeholders, all the authorities, but also shared by the media, and through the media, also through the whole, we will welcome to also see then a vital discussion on our findings, because this is what we want to, let's say, provoke a good discussion.
And then, if I may add, when we return to the country, as mentioned by the chief observer, in some 2 months after the completion of the electoral process, and we will present the recommendations. We will present those recommendations to the state authorities, but we will also invite you for a similar press conference to share with you and with the Liberian public opinion those recommendations.
That was almost 1 hour, a lot of questions. Thank you very much. We would like to close the press conference now. Thank you very much, all of you joining us today. We have the printed.
Okay, that was the press conference from the European Union observation mission in Liberia on election matter in Liberia. We'd like to say thanks for watching. This is Vision TV from me. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.